the product we have up here. Question in the back, yes. Yeah, so yes. So we have trains that have wind restriction on them. We have quite a few cars that have blowover restrictions at a certain mile an hour. So especially intermodal, empty intermodal double stack containers. If it's too windy, we don't stop the train, but we'll slow it down. Believe it or not, if you stop the train's more likely to blow over than when it's actually moving slow. So if we have blowovers, we'll set them out in the van yard. We'll look at train makeup, we'll set them out online, we'll stop the train, things of that nature. Now everything will run rain, water, sleet, snow, whatever it may be, they'll run. Tornadoes, yep, you name it. Go ahead.
So with the tornadoes, I remember hearing from one of the volunteers up at the tower, they had said if there's a tornado bearing down, what they've told me is they'll take the train, they'll set the brakes on the tail end, and stretch it out so all the couplers are under tension.
And I'll drive in and bring you in the rest of the way.
Walk all the brakes down, so sitting under tension, and just let the storm pass over.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And then the safest place to be for a tornado in this area, if there is one, is inside the locomotive cab.
Yeah.
It's going to take, I've never seen it, if anybody has, a tornado tip over a locomotive.
That's nearly impossible.
Nearly impossible.
Because what, they weigh about
460,000 pounds.
360,000 pounds. 360,000 pounds. So
they're heavy.
Which do you like, good?
I'm a big GE fan. After working on EMD and GE, GE's always been kind of the thoroughbred of locomotives. They came out with a 7 FDL engine, which is the workhorse of GE for many years. They've come out with the Evolution engine, which is a 12-cylinder, 4-stroke engine, diesel. That was, again, a power horse of all Class 1 railroads for General Electric. Now they come out with a newer engine as well, newer technology, but they've always seemed to be, in my humble opinion, one step ahead of EMD Progress Rail. So Tier 4s were a booger when they first came out, because they have 2 turbos, a high pressure and a low pressure turbo, and as well as an EGR cooler. Yes, we ran into a lot of problems with software, turbos, EGRs getting clogged, stuff like that. Yeah, so that's going through the EGR, which a lot of that EGR, that cooler, will take a lot of that soot and trap it, versus, and that high pressure turbo, when it's running, would burn off a lot of that. So that's how we got around the Tier 4 emissions. Now, there's a law right now trying to get passed with the California Clean Emissions Law with the EPA that would really hamper transportation on a rail impact. I mean, it would really devastatingly impact rail operations from not only from a short line but a Class 1 railroad. So we've asked our congressmen and senators not to sign that bill because it would cripple the economy. So as we know how law works, if we got any lawyers in here that pass precedents in certain states, is where we try to establish law, and that's why they went to California with the EPA with something like that. So we hope as an industry that something like that doesn't get passed, because it would really, the consumer is going to be the one that pays for that, unfortunately, because prices of rail would go up, trucking would go up, all that stuff. So we hope that something like that wouldn't get passed. Yep, nope. Yep, there's a good question. No cabooses. When did they go out? So mid-90s, early 90s, we phased out the cabooses and went to an end-of-train device. What that is basically replace the caboose. It's something that's handheld that goes in the back rear coupler. You dial into the head-end box. It's like a remote control. There's a box in the cab and the end-of-train device. They communicate and talk with each other, and it's looking at that brake pipe pressure. And if it's a sudden drop, it'll have the train go in emergency from the rear to the front, and vice versa from the front to the rear. So they'll meet in the middle and the train will stop quickly. We do have the one caboose back there, our snow bus. We use that, and when the weather gets really inclement during the winter time, we'll run that on to go get crews that may be stranded out there if the trains are stuck or whatever, and we'll bring them back in or swap crews out when we can't get vans and taxis out there to them.
I will say this, I have seen a Caboose, and that was a modified one. I have seen them on work trains, but that, like on the Loram rail grinder I've seen one, but that one was like heavily modified for fighting a fire that would be lit off by one of the sparks.
Yep, you're right.
But that's an exception.
Yeah, we do have some Cabooses in specialized operations. Yep.
Shoving platforms.
Oh yeah.
What's that?
What about shoving platforms?
I can't hear the question.
He's asking about the shoving platforms.
Oh,
like
gotcha. Yeah, so I know in Denver North Yard, if you see some Denver people here, we do use our snow bus for a shoving platform from time to time when it's cold, inclement weather. But we typically don't use them here in Bailey Yard and most of the service unit. We don't use those other than in Denver when it gets really cold and nasty and we got to go up the belt for a long distance. We don't want a conductor hanging off the side of a car going around, you know, the interchanges up there in North Yard.
It's UP430 that's their shove platform. I've seen it probably 3 dozen times.
That gentleman's an expert right back there if you need to ask him any questions.
Any questions regarding Denver anyway? I know that guy like the back of my hand.
Yeah, he's good.
I'm up there on a weekly basis.
615 lights out, what's range?
Alright, so over to the right-hand side, you see some containers and some intermodal trains. That's called our blend yard. And so that's what we do is if we know we got an intermodal pickup, and what that means, we got a Z train or an I train coming in the yard that needs to do a pickup of 40 cars. They'll switch those cars out there in the blend yard. They'll shove it down on the rail. Inbound train will come in, tie onto it, and depart. So they'll either set out or pick up, but those set out or pickups will go up in the blend yard so they can get switched. So our yard essentially, if you think about it, we have the blend yard, west run through yard, east run through, west receiving, west hump, right, west departure yard, east hump, east receiving. Now most yards, I can tell you, don't have that many. Van yard, thank you. Most yards only have just a few of those, so that's why we're the world's largest classification yard. Yep, good question. Hours of service was asked about how we handle the crews and hours of service. So, yes, crews are federally mandated 12-hour shifts when they're working on locomotives, kind of like a truck driver, right, with his logs. They can't go over that 12-hour mark. They have to stop the train, and the crew has to go relieve them for safety reasons and for rest. There's a little bit more to it, but that's just the nuts and bolts. Yep.
From what I've heard with that system, at least from this is what I heard from one of the guys in Denver, they had said that it can't be, when your 12 hours is up, you can't be stopping the train. You've got to have your bags collected and off the locomotive by that time.
Yeah, you don't have to be off the locomotive, but the train's got to be stopped, correct? You know, set and center, we call it, right?
I get you.
Center the reverser and make sure we're not power offline. Yeah, go ahead.
So regarding the 12 hours, how many days can they work?
Wait, how many days? 6 consecutive without a 24-hour break. So the opportunity to make money on an extra board is opportunity to make some money. Just got to be ready to answer the phone.